Hello there, this is Critical from Critical Media, just taking a look at the 2021 Deluxe Edition release of Batman, A Death in the Family, from Jim Starlin, Jim Aparo, Mike DeCarlo complementing the art, with Marv Wolfman and George Perez mainly focusing on the subsequent story, A Lonely Place of Dying. And what we usually do at this channel is give you an idea of what to expect if you ever come across this book in the wild. So we go over the exterior, some bonus material, art and plot points, and then a brief review at the end. Now this story, yes, if you're interested in this video, you probably already know what it's about, and it makes no subtlety either. Yes, this is about Jason Todd's passing in the 80s, and in that light, at least on terms of the exterior here, yes, it's very similar to the trade paperback that was available for many years. I myself upgraded to this. And in that light, yeah, a very similar design, very glossy dust jacket. But I do appreciate the pattern aesthetic that kind of extends upon the spine here. So very much appreciative of that, especially on the badge, which also wraps onto the exterior here. And as I mentioned, this book makes no subtlety. I mean, it even mentions it right there of his passing. But underneath the dust jacket, however, on the hardback design, on the binding, a very unique gloss finish where, sure, it does have that famous Aparo image, that panel. The spine, it's more black and muted, so it doesn't have the pattern aesthetic, but still looks prominent. But on the rear, it has that juxtaposition or that alternate ending, if he survived. So I do appreciate that little look there, or that nod. But in terms of bonus material, surprisingly, we're getting pretty much the same stuff we got in the trade that was available for many years. As a matter of fact, exactly the same. So yes, the banner where, yeah, if you called in, Robin lived. If you called in, Joker would have died. But in truth, what's the word? Well, I shouldn't say he died, but you know what I mean. But either way, I think that whatever was going to happen no matter what. And to be honest, this did have proper consequences for the Batman. I always call this a part of the fall of the Batman story, where, yes, it kind of starts with Killing Joke, this, Venom, and then Nightfall. But what I do appreciate is it does have those alternate panels here, just to give you an idea of what they would have done with the story. I do appreciate the dialogue. They would have been in a coma. And then a little bit of this editorial for Denny O'Neil. Do love reading these. Even this one here from Canada, where the person even references Frank Miller. And by the way, a little Easter egg for folks. Jason Todd was inferred as dying in Dark Knight Returns even before this came out. So I always found that very interesting. Now for, I guess, art and plot points. Yes, this is dealing with basically the unruly Jason Todd as Robin. I do kind of like that juxtaposition, though, between Dick Grayson and, of course, Jason. But in that light, yeah, you're kind of getting those kinetics here. Very awesome. And you kind of see how he's hard to rein in, and Batman's constantly dealing with that. But eventually, Jason basically comes to a realization that his mother that he thought was his mother turns out wasn't his birth mother. So he's basically traveling the world trying to hunt down possible candidates that he believes they are. But what I do appreciate about this story, Jim Starlin did really go for a very graphic, visceral kind of tale to tell, because there's no real happy endings for a lot of things, and bad things really do happen, especially like the severity, the very, graphic nature of this. Just this whole scene in Lebanon. The story actually does take place quite a few different areas. But one of my favorite parts of this book is when Shiva first pops up. Yeah, so even Shiva is expected to be, or potentially, one of his candidates. But yeah, I just like the kinetics in this shot. I mean, it ain't no Dennis Cowan for the 80s, but it's damn good, that's for sure. Yeah, nothing against Jim Aparo. You're awesome too, man. Wow. But I always liked how on point this whole fight scene is, but more importantly, like the end result of it. And the believability, like when he uses a truth serum, but you can't just use truth serum right away. Like you have to wait for it to come into effect. And even especially, you have to make sure the person doesn't OD or whatever. So I do appreciate they actually go as far as telling that part of the story. But yes, this story, it does have pretty excellent art throughout. I can't deny that, that's for sure. But in that light, as you go through it, yeah, you have the whole Sheila Haywood aspect. And Joker is also the one jet setting around the world at the same time. And the very famous moment with the crowbar, of course. Man, what a haunting image. But you kind of see that no matter what he tries, it's just a never-ending result of what's going to happen. Like, it's a shame because he does go out like a hero. I do appreciate how they wrote it. It makes you feel for the character by the end. And then there's of course the final part with the UN and whatnot. I guess with when now he's being partnered with Superman more so toward the end. So I do appreciate the at least the final climax to this story. But then it's kind of followed up here with A Lonely Place of Dying, which basically is the entry point for Tim Drake as Robin. Personally, I always felt Tim Drake was just a placeholder. He always felt that way for many years, where he really just filled in the gaps. And yeah, sure, they try to explain like why he knows what he knows, but it's just something that I found, it could have been done better. But yeah, this is where Marv Wolfman definitely jumps into the story to help plot it, and it's very unique. I do like that aspect with Two-Face in this, where he's almost kind of like acting as Harvey Dent and Two-Face at the same time, that real juxtaposition. But this particular page here, I always felt like it was intended to be like a reference to Rorschach from Watchmen. Watchmen had just come out around this time as well. So definitely appreciated this little scene here. But yeah, you're surprised. You're gonna get a little bit of a surprise here, where George Perez, he's not as involved with this storyline as you may think. Sure, he does help plot out the Teen Titan crossover events, or at least crossover issues, but really doesn't go that much further. But one of my favorite pages is this, where yes, it's that parallel between what Two-Face is planning and what Batman is plotting to try and stop him with. You do read it individually, right? But I do like the design layout here. And also the final part where now finally you kind of see the counters, they're each conversation juxtaposing against each other. But always felt that was pretty on point there. Probably one of my favorite Batman images of the 80s. Almost has like that same aesthetic that Norm Brayfogle would also adopt as well. As a matter of fact, I find a lot of the artists in the 80s, they did pretty much stay faithful to each other. They all kind of match the same anatomies. But yeah, I just love the encroaching, entry into the window, and just that look of Batman here. It has enough of the old and more than enough of the detail of the new that it definitely is very pretty much prominent. But definitely a necessity for any Batman fan. The narrative is damn good. A Lonely Place of Dying, do I feel Tim Drake is kind of the extra? Sure. But the narrative itself is actually on point, because I rarely find really great Two-Face stories, and it felt fitting that Two-Face pops up when a new Robin comes about. But that's just my opinion at the end of the day. More importantly, as always, it's all about yours, and I wouldn't mind hearing it in the comments down below. Speaking of which, this is actually the first video where I'm doing it with a proper microphone, or at least a better microphone than before. So if I'm too loud or whatever, also I wouldn't mind a little bit of critiques. I do make these for you guys more so. But anywho, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video, and until then, enjoy the rest of your day.